Hello, Isaac. Thank you for your time. Appreciate. Just very quickly, let me ask you, if there are any similarities that you see between Rafa Benitez back in the day and also Steve Bruce.
Yeah, I get asked this question quite a lot, to be honest, comparing managers. It's quite difficult because they've got two very contrasting styles. But, I've got a lot to be thankful for to Rafa. He brought me to the club. He was like a second father to me. There was, helped me so much with my game and improved me a lot as a player. And then obviously Steve, I know very well from the past. When I was a young lad coming through, he took me on loan at Hull, and again, he's come in here, and the results have been good, and the club's moving in the right direction. So they're both good managers, both very different, and very hard to compare.
It's interesting that you mentioned different. What was it like in the day, though? During training, perhaps under Rafa Benitez stewardship. If you were to compare that to Steve Bruce's style of play, how would you compare
it? Rafa was very, very tactical, and had a very stringent way of doing things, and everything had to be right on the button tactically. I feel Steve does things differently in terms of he likes to feel his way through training sessions and games, and make decisions based on feelings, which he's very good at. And as I said, they're both very, very good managers, and obviously Rafa's won numerous trophies at the highest level, but not forgetting Steve's also won lots of promotions from the Championship to Premier League, and he's managed a lot of Premier League games. So they're both very, very good managers.
Right. Thanks for that. Ideally, you do play as a holding midfielder, and I know that's your favorite position, but you've been deployed, over the season at right back and also central defense more recently. How do you, adapt to that instantly? Because it's not easy having to do that 1 week and then switch the very next week, right? So how do you adapt instantly and sort of like get that understanding between you and your teammates?
You are right. It's quite difficult, to play Saturday at centre half and then play Wednesday at centre midfield. It can become quite challenging if you're doing that on a regular basis. But, luckily I had a very good football grounding. I grew up in the Arsenal Academy in the Arsenal way. And, I was fortunate enough to have a dad that understood football a lot. And we used to go through a lot of tactics and a lot of positioning when I was younger. With him and with coaches when I was growing up at Arsenal. So I like to think I've got very good game understanding, and I like to think that I could play anywhere on the pitch if I was asked to play there, and do a job. And as I said, it's just over the years, the more positions I've played, the more times I've played them, I've got better at each position. And as I said, it's definitely going to help improve the team and improve the squad in whichever team I play in.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I was watching back the performance against West Bromwich Albion, and I thought you were magnificent in as a centre half. It was one of your best performances, I think, as a centre back that I've seen. You did mention in an article before that I read that players that you just don't want to be beating relegation every season, and that you truly believe that Newcastle United can actually be a top 8 side one day. Looking at the current team, do you think that's a possibility?
100%. I think we've got the best squad that we've had since I've arrived at the club. 4 or 5 years ago, this is definitely the best squad that we've had on paper. But always the caveat to that is that you've got to get the team firing and the right tactics, the right formation, and get everyone playing at the best of their abilities, which can be difficult to link at the right time. But I said, we've definitely got the players there, and it's just about finding a way to maximise the potential out of each player and to get us winning as many football matches as possible.
Right, you mentioned players, and the names that come to mind, the new additions, obviously, Callum Wilson, Jamal Lewis, Ryan Fraser, and of course Jeff Hendrick have been monumental for the club so far in their performances, of course. Have you been impressed by the recruitments, and do you see perhaps the January transfer window being an opportunity to strengthen?
Yeah, no, the recruitment was excellent in the summer. The club bought very well and managed to get Ryan Fraser and Jeff Hendrick on a free, which was very, very good business. But as I said, January is always a tough window. You know, a lot of expectation on January of teams. They want to buy players or they want to, spend lots of money. But the reality is that, the world is in a pandemic. There's a lot of money lost in football. And at the end of the day, football's a business for football clubs. So I think the money to spend in January will be less than usual. And I think it'll be a case where other teams, especially that are in and around us, or that are in the Premier League, they won't want to sell their players to other Premier League clubs or other rivals. And then if they do, they want to put the price up. So there's a lot of intricate details in January that makes it very difficult for clubs to get the quality of player they need to improve the squad. But as I said, I reckon if the club can find the certain individuals to improve us as a team, then they'll do so.
It's interesting that you mentioned the pandemic, and I think Newcastle United have been one of those clubs who's been affected the most, especially recently having the game versus Aston Villa postponed as well. And, a number of players coming down with the virus, being positive and all that, but being tested again and being negative. And that does affect your training schedules and your fitness and whatnot. How difficult is it to, in the midst of a season, having to start and stop so frequently, and how does that take a toll fitness-wise?
Yeah, it's definitely difficult, because if you're playing a run of games and you're playing 90 minutes every week or starting games every week, then you're going to be fitter and stronger. But it's part and parcel of the world we live in at the minute. We're very lucky and fortunate to be in the position that we are, still in a job, still doing our job, still playing football. And there's a lot of people out there that are in much worse situations. So for me, you just have to get on with it and do the best that you can and give absolutely everything, every time you come into work, because, it could be a complete different story.
Yeah, and I think the Newcastle fans appreciate you guys for what you do, and they see the commitment that you guys put in week in, week out. And speaking of the fans, of course, Newcastle fans, the Geordies are really big up north. And they always come in numbers. But, having not been able to see that happen in recent times have been difficult, I'm sure. But when you look at, other stadiums and other clubs having allowed fans back in smaller numbers, how do you think Newcastle would look at that as something of an advantage? Because the fans are huge, and every time, you play a home game with fans around, it's always a big plus.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, we're led by the government guidelines of tiers over here. So, unfortunately, we're in tier 3 up in the northeast, which means that there's no fans allowed at stadiums. But as said, we're hoping, fingers crossed, that 2021, we'll start to improve that and get more fans into stadiums and, increase that and hopefully get back to some sort of normality. Because as I said, with fans, especially, the Newcastle fans, especially at home, it can make a massive difference. And even away, I mean, for me, I think that they're probably the best away fans in the Premier League. And they always come in their numbers, and they can make a difference away from home or at home. So, as I said, the quicker we can get them back in stadiums, the better. But it has to be safe at the end of the day, and we don't want anybody to risk illness or risk themselves by doing so.
On a side note, apart from Newcastle United, you've literally represented England in literally every age group, except the senior squad, of course. How much of an aspiration is it to be part of the Gareth Southgate setup eventually?
Oh, it's huge. As you said, it's not a nice reminder that I've played in every age group but the first team. But it's definitely something which I look to and positive about. Don't get me wrong, I have to improve on a lot of areas of my game if I'm going to get into that squad. I'm not in any doubt with that. But it's definitely an ambition of mine. I still feel that at 25, I've still got time on my hands to improve and to get myself into the squad. And there's definitely positions up for grabs in midfield areas over the next couple of years, I feel.
All right, Isaac, thank you so much. And I truly believe that that's a huge possibility for you in the years to come with the versatility that you display week in, week out. Thank you so much for your time, buddy.
So much. Thank you for your time.
Permainan pengurus bola sepak terhangat sudah tiba. Rekrut bintang-bintang pemain bola terhebat bagi pasukan anda. Uji formasi dan taktik anda untuk mengalahkan pengurus lain. Bina pasukan impian anda hari ini.